to talk to you about one more thing, and in particularly, I'm going to talk about this perfectionism. Perfectionism is pretty rampant in our culture throughout the United States. I don't know in other parts of the world, but it's certainly very toxic here in the U.S. in our cultures. And what I want to convey is that perfectionism is not a badge of honor. It's not something to be proud of. It's quite deadly, and I hope to show you that as we go through this. Perfectionism is highly toxic, both to the own physical body and to relationships. And this is how it all gets started. I've talked about this and mentioned it before, but what happens is we take a caring, compassionate human being, and then we give them a compliment for accomplishing something, right? We are designed to connect. So when that's happening, if somebody gives me a compliment for giving a good talk or losing weight or something along those lines or getting a good grade, that's going to cause a dopamine release in my brain. I'm going to get pleasure from that because I'm designed to connect. But the problem is I'm getting pleasure for something I have almost no control over, and that's compliments. I'm getting pleasure out of accomplishing something that I can't always guarantee that I'm going to accomplish. So I'm setting myself up here, and obviously I'm not doing this consciously, but I'm kind of being set up to now get this fight or flight or compulsion, because our security guard is back here saying, hey, we just got a dopamine release for that compliment. I think we should get more of that, right? Because security guards are always assuming that if it feels good, it must be good for us. So it sets up this fight or flight or a compulsion to seek after and get more compliments. This is the foundation of perfectionism, or sometimes called a fixed mindset in the research literature, right? So we want to begin to undo this, but here's how it can really go wrong. So perfectionism sets up this incorrect idea that my worth is based upon my achievements, right? This then can start setting me up to social comparison. Am I doing better than that person, or am I doing worse than this person? But remember, I talked earlier, we're designed to connect, right? So the moment I'm better than you, because I just compared and I see that I do better than you, well, I've just created pain in my brain because I'm designed to connect. If I'm better than you, then I can't connect with you, right? So I've actually set myself up to experience more pain. Or vice versa, if I think I'm worse than you, again, I'm going to experience pain because I'm now set up to be more lonely. I can't connect with you if I'm worse than you, right? This basing worth upon accomplishments and achievements is a very dangerous road. This perfectionism, I experience pain. My security guard sees this. This pain is coming from not connecting to people. And I go into this nearly constant state of fight or flight or freeze. So in other words, anxiety and depression, nearly constantly. And this is highly chemically toxic on the brain and body. Cortisol, like the fight or flight kind of energizing hormone, it's meant to be there for a few moments to deal with actual physical threat. If I'm constantly in that state, it will literally start destroying my brain and my body. It's very toxic, literally, on the body. It leads to things like anxiety, like depression, gastrointestinal distress, right? GERD, it's very common, chronic fatigue, immune difficulties, immunodeficiencies, chronic headaches, and suicide, right? All of those things come because I'm now set up. If my worth is based upon my accomplishments, I am set up to experience this fight, flight, or freeze frequently throughout my life. So, and by the way, the reason it leads to suicide is, remember, one of the rules we've talked about in the past, the security guard, is pain is bad, stop it, right? Well, perfectionism sets up nearly constant pain, and any brain that is in pain long enough will eventually hit on the idea, well, I can't do anything else, but maybe if we end our life, then the pain will go away. and so solution will be hit upon, or suicide will be hit upon as a solution. So perfectionism is very toxic and deadly. It's not a badge of honor. How can we learn or unlearn perfectionism? Because we definitely learn perfectionism. It's not something the children are born with. So one is start to consider the extreme damage that comes from giving others compliments or yourself compliments for accomplishments and achievements. Learn that that's not a healthy way of interacting with other humans or ourselves. Learn to give compliments for efforts. Learn that that's what's desirable. What we're looking for is people who are trying to improve, and compliment those efforts. And it goes a long ways to helping somebody recover from this perfection. Learn to celebrate failures when you're trying new things. Get excited about failures in yourself and in others, roommates, family, friends, whoever it's with. Get excited about failure when it's showing up as you're trying to improve yourself. It's great. It's a beautiful learning opportunity. Learn to celebrate that. Learn how to apologize. People who fall into perfectionistic tendencies are terrible at apologizing for the wrong things. And they're also not very good at receiving apologies, both of which are necessary for healthy human connection. Learning self-acceptance is another way to deal with perfectionism. Really learn what self-care and self-acceptance is all like. So let me talk first about these first three, because there's some great resources for that one. And this is Carol Dweck, and she does a great job at beginning to show us how dangerous this idea of a fixed mindset can be. And perfection is one version of fixed mindset. She begins to talk about how vital it is that we learn that we can grow at all points in our life. We can literally grow our intelligence. A lot of people think, oh, that's fixed. You're either smart and intelligent or you're not. That's actually, the research is showing very clear that's not true at all. Intelligence is something that can be grown and it can be lost. And one of the best ways to grow it is to learn to love failure. Learn to love the learning experience that comes from failing. Learn to both congratulate yourself for trying and congratulating others for trying. Get really excited about that and far less excited about accomplishments. So here's her book, Mindset. A couple of the things that she talks about in there. And by the way, this is, in my opinion, the best parenting book on the planet. If someone can really get in touch with the ideas that she's talking about here, it's an amazing way of parenting children. So growth mindset, this is what she talks about. It says that effort and failure in the pursuit of goals are keys to growth, and perfection is just an illusion. Getting rid of that, really getting focused on growing our mind. And then perfectionist mindset, she'll talk about this in here, it's a delusion that perfection's possible, right? Or that your worth is somehow based upon what you achieve or accomplish, and it's not. So she helps to disabuse us of this idea that our worth has anything to do with accomplishing anything. So to begin to heal from perfectionism, one of the things that you can begin to do is just fall in love with effort and failure when they happen in the context of growing and learning. Like, they're essential parts of growth. We can actually grow and improve. None of us start out perfect, and we can't become perfect, but we can improve and get excited about the process. So the next thing, learn how to apologize. I mentioned earlier that people with perfectionistic tendencies, they don't know how to give apologies for the right things or accept apologies. And Harriet Lerner does a great job of describing these in her book, Why Won't You Apologize? There's also a great TED Talk she gives on this idea of apologizing. And learning how and when to apologize goes a long way. It fits very nicely with kind of a growth mindset idea. Is we need to apologize when we hurt somebody. We don't need to apologize when we just made a mistake that doesn't hurt anybody. And we want to apologize if we've hurt someone interpersonally, but not when we've just made a mistake on, on a math quiz or something. That's no reason to apologize. So we've got to begin to recognize that human beings are fallible and always will be. Human beings, mortal beings, are fallible, and they're going to continue to be. We just need to take responsibility. If I hurt someone, I need to take responsibility for that. And I need to learn to let others take responsibility for their fallibilities. So stop apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. Don't apologize for breathing. And the other thing is learn how to accept apologies. It's very important. People need, if someone has hurt you, they need to be able to apologize to you and hear that you hear it. So instead of saying, oh, that's fine, it's not a big deal, instead, next time someone apologizes, thank them because they cared about you. They want to connect with you. If they're apologizing, they want to come closer to you. Thank them instead of dismissing their apology. It's very important for yourself and for your relationship to allow other people to apologize when they've hurt you. They need it, and so do you. So this other one, learning self-acceptance. So let's just talk about infants. I mentioned them earlier. Let me show you an infant, and I know all of you are probably grossed out by this picture, like, because you know what this disgusting little creature is capable of, right? You all know that this baby likely poops itself. It burps, it passes gas with no apology. It never asks with its words to give him some food. If he's hungry, he just whines or cries, right? Just all this kind of really leechy kind of behavior that this child engages in. And of course, most of you are thinking, what kind of creep is this Dallas Johnson describing a baby that way? Well, I want you to notice that, of course, we don't look at this child, this little infant, with eyes of disgust because it hasn't yet learned how to go to the bathroom. Like, we don't do that. We treat this baby like an infant, and that's what infants do. They're learning. We get excited when this little baby babbles. We get excited when it makes nonsense sounds, and we reward it with our smiles and our congratulations. And we get excited when this infant's just trying. And what I want to invite you to consider is that you might think that you're this advanced creature, and you're just not. You're not. And here, if we look at the doctrine, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who are you compared to God? The scriptures are very clear on what you are, and you're an infant. And so just like you look at this infant and you're not disgusted by it when it can't quite keep food in its mouth the right way, or it can't walk properly, you get excited when it just tries. Well, God compares us to infants. To him, we are infants. And so keeping that in mind and having a lot more self-compassion, really recognizing you're not the advanced being that you think you are. You're just barely learning to talk and walk relative to a deity. So sustainable growth, real self-acceptance, comes from learning to get excited about being an infant, learning that all of us are in this stage. We're all struggling to do it. We're going to fall down and bump. We can get excited for each other during this process. Stop thinking that you're very advanced. You're just not. None of us are. Right? One of the ways to do this is you can get connected with some of the self-compassion work that's done by Kristen Neff. She has a website out there you could go to. Another great resource is The Power of Vulnerability, Brene Brown. She has a couple of TED Talks you can go to and learn about. These are great ways to begin to learn that we're not supposed to be perfect. So again, if this is something that you like, this idea, then you can create some sort of statement that you can say to yourself each morning. So if I am feeling like a failure, then I will remind myself that failure means I'm trying and I'm learning. so I can reinterpret failure. Failure is evidence that I'm trying, not evidence that I'm broke. It's evidence that I want to improve, not evidence that I don't care. Failure is evidence that I really do care about life and the people in my life. If I say this statement to myself a couple times each morning, I'm far more likely then, when I bump into failure in the day, and I will, to remind myself that it's okay, I'm trying, and of course I'm going to fail.